My husband's pretty rich. He makes a lot of money and he's known in the town that we live in. Well, we had one of the most massive weddings you could ever imagine. Too bad I found out later that he's cheating on me with his own stepdaughter. I know very well what they say, that your friends would never lie to you, and that they only want what's best for you. I'm not sure how true that saying is, because my friends, from the things that they've said to me, I feel that they don't want to see me happy. To give some context, I'll introduce myself. My name's Marionette, but my friends call me Mary. My life for the first 30 and so years of existence have been somewhat boring. Very typical, if you ask me. I don't consider myself ugly, quite the contraire. I've always had good self-esteem, and we all know that helps with my relationships. But that leads to a curse. You see, a tragic love life. I've dated several guys, but none of them made it past the first date. And, well, I guess the reason is either because of me or because of them. Maybe it's because we have nothing to talk about. Or because their intentions are purely fleshy. The truth is that people like that don't interest me, and ever since I was a little girl, I can say that those men disgust me. I have come to think that no man has ever been up to the task. The model of the perfect man is just a stupid idealization we form based on movies and TV shows. This may sound very pessimistic, but experience has told me that is so. Moreover, they say that usually the most beautiful people are the ones who have the worst luck in love, and they don't know how demoralizing it is to finally go out with someone you like only to realize that he's actually a heartless pig. It wasn't always like that, though, and there was one man who did care about me. Well, not a man, a boy, Eric, who had been my first and only official boyfriend. It was a high school romance, one I dated for I think a year or two. I don't remember, I was very young. He was a true gentleman. He simply made me laugh, and, well, we could just spend an entire night talking on the phone, using up all our credit in the process and getting scolded by our parents. Unfortunately, things changed when he moved to another country, and we all had to leave each other against our will. Well, it was a long while before I started dating again, as I still had the fervent thought that this was my one true love. Young love, am I right? I kept in touch with Eric, but eventually we stopped talking, knowing that a long-distance relationship was tougher than a couple of pubescent kiddos, and so I stayed that way for a long, long time. As I tell you, I dated several guys, but none of them were up to par. At one point, I was criticized for being too, quote, difficult, for being unreachable, for bouncing off all the guys just because I thought I was superior to everyone else. But nothing could be more untrue than that. My friends were always there to support me, to help me with double dates and blind dates, but it all ended in the same thing. At one point, I thought it was my destiny to stay alone, or at least accept that the right person was going to come along on his own. And I think something like that happened. Robert showed up during one of the civic events my older sister was going to. It was just a meeting where older parents were giving proposals on how they could improve the city's infrastructure and so on. I went, and I'm not kidding, because they said there was going to be cake. It's funny to me that the whole thing came about just because I was going to have free cake. But I guess that's, well, they call it fate. It works in mysterious ways. That's what Robert always says. Well, that's where we met. He's a little older than me, and he commands a very cold respect whenever he shows up. Despite always walking around and laughing, he's one of the richest men in town, and known to the press for his every move in the economy or city functions. He once brought the works of a national artist to a small exhibit at the city's cultural center, raising funds to improve the building's structure. On another occasion, he became widely mentioned for leading the public petition to tear down the building that we had and for being an advocate of animal rights. That was something that made all the women melt with love. And the fact that he's so damn beautiful. Well, he was married years ago, where they were very well known for how public it was. They went everywhere together, and he looked very cute with her daughter from his wife, a previous marriage, but tragically struck when his wife died in a tragic accident. It was a heartbreaking event that affected more than one, and since then, Robert kept a little further away from the public eye, but without neglecting his spectacular social work. In addition, he was described as an exemplary father, taking care of his stepdaughter and just taking her to the best schools in the area. Anyways, I'll skip a few steps. Still, I can tell you that in the event where I was with my sister, I bumped into Robert, who was also at the cake table. I can't get over how silly the situation was. We talked and we introduced ourselves, and he was supremely friendly. He always smiled at me and made me feel part of the crowd, even though he knew for a fact that I did not belong there. At the end of the event, he spoke to me again and we exchanged contacts. Then we corresponded, and I could not believe I was talking to him. I mean, how many people in the world can say that they've had a conversation with one of the richest and most famous people in their town? Not even for being as pretty as they say. I thought it would never happen to me. Well, our conversation progressed to the point where he asked me out on a date. And to me, it was like being invited by your teenage idol. Of course, I had to restrain my urge, otherwise I might explode. And all at once I began to be the envy of my friends and sisters. At first, innocently, but soon rather than later, things got out of hand. And then, the proposal. Well, it was only a few months, maybe 9, when he told me to go further as we weren't getting any younger, especially him. I said I do, in a bit of a panic, but that's when I sealed my fate. Then came the wedding, and girls, you will never in your life see a wedding like the one I had. Over the months, I was able to understand how much money I had, but I could never manage to visualize all that this referred to. I mean, it's one thing to have enough money to guarantee food, a band, and that everyone at the reception would be comfortable, but it was quite another to be able to make all my dreams since I was a little girl come true condensed into one night. He only told me one phrase, "Tell me what you want and I'll give it to you." It didn't matter that I wanted a flamingo party or the dancers and all the Spanish-themed stuff, all my family present, even my aunts who were in Madrid. He did everything humanly possible to see that we could celebrate, and so much so that we even got to appear in the newspaper. I'm not kidding. We seriously appeared in the news. In the social events section, it was the first time I've been there, and although I don't usually get featured much, they did a very positive write-up on the beauty and the brand new wife of a local businessman, Robert. Well, the dress, the music, the ceremony, and the cake, the things that originally brought us together, everything was so perfect. And I just really could not tell you any negatives about it. That was about half a year ago, and I dare say that even today they're still talking about it. Well, taking it almost as the event of the year. But now comes the nasty part, and that's Robert's daughter. Dolly is quite a flirtatious girl for her age. She wears makeup more and better than I do. And although she's only 17 years of age, I feel she will have a movie star body by the time she reaches adulthood. She's assimilated to the rich life better than I have, even though it is normal, because Robert became her stepfather when she was only 5 years old. And she treats him better than her real father, who lives in another city. And to be honest, she should be with Robert because he can give her a better life, as crude as it sounds. Well, my relationship with her has been very friendly. And although sometimes with a few clashes in between, I don't come here to change her life. But it's concerning her that the conversation I told you in the beginning was starting to arise. You see, as I said, the relationship is quite good. Well, they make no distinction of a true father and daughter relationship, but to my friends, now that they're part of Robert's close circle, they feel that he and Dolly have a relationship that goes a bit beyond that. It sounds crazy to even say it aloud, but while I do admit that they are always close, I don't feel that it crosses the line of what is morally permissible. It's just a normal affection they have for each other. So far, our living together has not been out of the ordinary. He loves and cares for me above all else, and we always go to events and hold hands with Dolly, so to speak, relegated to the background, which she likes and is comfortable with. It's just being out of the house that other people assume that, and because when visiting me, they noticed how she's always asking for help with homework from Robert, and teenage advice, which oddly enough I feel he's better suited for. I don't know why. My mom tells me that it may be the envy of others, but I doubt very much that it's that. For I have these friendships for almost a lifetime, and as I told you before, aren't they supposed to say and do what's best for us? Well, I wouldn't know at this point. If anything else comes up, I will comment here, as I have found on this site it's a safe space, where I can kind of express myself freely. My life has been perfect during this last year, and frankly, I don't intend to let myself be carried away by comments that could have taken me away from the comfortable place that I'm in. I ask you guys this. Wouldn't you do the same if you were in my position? Update number 1, less than a year later. Hey, I feel I owe an apology to many people, including all of you. I can't believe the martyrdom I'm going through on the slide today. And for all simply trying to make myself respected, in the end, the rumors were true. And my husband is having an affair with his own stepdaughter. If you're wondering, yes, I puked my guts out when I confirmed it, and I don't even feel safe in my own home. I hope you don't mind if I tell you the details, as, at some point I think it'll be of great importance to what's about to happen. Behind the facade of a good-natured, smiling man lies a depraved, ill man. He was initially suspicious because of certain behaviors that Dolly had in her day-to-day life. She had this tradition with Robert of taking, an hour talk every night with whatever the subject, as a sort of habit to get close and tell each other what they had done during the day. I always respected this, as it was something between them that I would not dare disturb. However, for a while now, those little meetings were becoming very extensive. He could spend almost 2 hours in her room talking, and when I tried to be a part of it, let's just say it wasn't the friendliest reception in the world. I tried twice, the first time by accident and the second time on purpose to get her reaction, and neither was pretty. The first was just because she had gotten slightly low grades in class, and we tried to console her, but she was very, very reluctant, not wanting to talk. It wasn't until I went to get a glass of water that she started talking to Robert and told me that he would take care of the situation. Thinking that she did not want to talk to me, I felt displaced at the moment, like I wasn't worth it there to have my presence in the house. I just wanted to help, and she turned her back on me. Well, keep this first interaction with the glass of water in mind, as it'll be relevant in the future to come. The second occasion, it was more direct, and that was in the middle of one of the nightly conversations that they were having. I arrived to offer some flan that I've prepared. They were both very, very surprised to see me. All at once just started laughing nervously. They accepted the desserts but ate it very quietly, and I asked them, "And what are we laughing about?" They only answered me that it was a joke inside between them, so I wouldn't even understand it. Who knows how much crap they've been doing without me realizing it, and we spent the next few minutes in an incredibly awkward silence without them talking a single word on the subject, to the point where the atmosphere became somewhat tense. I took the hints and left, not without Robert seeing that I was leaving, uncomfortable, and trying to calm me down. It was one of the few nights when they did not talk that long just because I felt a little uncomfortable. The next day, almost reluctantly, Dolly asked me if I was feeling better already. I said yes, but that's because she was still hiding a few things up her sleeves. Unbeknownst to me, they were desecrating their own house. Who knows how long ago, and I knew it by a slight oversight, almost coincidental. There was one night, when I went to a friend's house for a girls' night, something we had not planned for a long time. I think it was the first time since I got married, and I said goodbye to Robert and Dolly as usual. But just as I was 5 minutes down the road, my friend, the hostess of the house I was going to, called and asked me if I could bring some board games, since I had several of my own. We were going to have an internet-free night as a symbolic way of people being able to take a break from everything going on in the world. Something very poetic, if you ask me, I know, but I could not do anything about it, as she is a good friend of mine, so I returned to the house and I opened up the door, noticing all the lights off. Well, that struck me as odd. Since it had not been long since I left, I went to the closet and pulled out the games. But there was no sign of Robert. I was going to ask Dolly, who coincidentally, her room was the only one with lights on, and she was letting a trickle of light through the door, so I approached it, and I heard some things, not some nice things at all. They were grown-up things, and they sounded quite loud, and one of them being Dolly's unmistakable voice. I was about to write to Robert, thinking that he had gone out and Dolly had taken advantage of the moment and gotten someone inside the house. If that was the case, Robert was going to unleash a living hell for invading the privacy of our home. On the other hand, I also thought I should let the girl be happy for one night, as perhaps she was taking advantage of not being under her father's gaze. But there was only one question left to myself. Where was Robert? All of this, I'm telling you, happened surprisingly in a margin of about a few seconds, because as if it had been a ghost, I heard the other voice inside Dolly's room. Sorry, it's very difficult for me to talk about this. Every time I think about it, I get goosebumps from the horror of having to imagine it all. They waited for me to leave, and they could not even wait 20 minutes. Besides, Robert was almost 3 times the age of the girl whom he's known since she was 5 years old. Gosh, everything absolutely is wrong, and I felt I was fainting. I had to leave the place, but I did not go to my friends, as I felt I could lose consciousness at any moment while driving. Instead, I went to my mom's for the night. It must have been quite uncomfortable for her as she found me crying inconsolably and not wanting to talk to anyone. She assumed at once that it was something with Robert, but I told her not to write to him. The last thing I wanted to do was talk to him. I texted my friend excusing myself and slept for almost half a day. And all that time I was reflecting on thousands of things, on one of them, and the one that pains me the most, is the fact that our first anniversary was only about 3 or 4 weeks away, and we were going to plan the event, which Robert had told me he was going to be something so big that it would leave our wedding in diapers. Now, my mind is in a limbo, not knowing what to do, and I'm just writing this before I get home again. I don't know how to react to this. How long has this been going on? Don't they feel remorse or disgust in doing it? Where's the respect for me, or at least for Dolly's late mother? I'd like to be straight to the nearest police station and comment on everything, but I don't know what the social repercussions of the whole thing would be like. I mean, we're talking about one of the most well-known and important figures in town, and this would be a scandal that would not only leave me in a bad light, but would end Dolly's life. I'm also afraid, because from everything I've seen of Robert, he's not too crazy to assume that he must know powerful people who will help him get away with a situation like this. So, it's hard for me to fully get to him to frame him. When it comes to something like this, it doesn't matter if it's your own wife. You're still going to have to do something about it. I say, I have fear, helplessness, pain, and a horrible feeling of betrayal. My stomach hurts. I think I'll write to everyone telling them I'm sick at my mom's house. I just hope no one answers my message. Right now, I want to be alone with the constant thought that, in the end, I was right, and there's no one in the world who can genuinely love me. They're all a bunch of degenerate pigs. Update 2. A week after the anniversary, a month after the last update. Hey, I think I'll stop with the updates as I feel it's not worth it anymore. In just a few days, so much has happened that I might as well consider writing a book full of anecdotes. I would call it Revenge on the Wedding Cake or something like that. I would have to talk it out with the publisher. It would be a story of romance and revenge, but for those of you who are going to want to read it, better take a break from what I'm about to tell you, as they're more than assured spoilers. When I left you in the last update, I told you that it was disgusted by everything that's happened with Robert and his daughter Dolly. Well, from the moment on, I had to think of something, since I knew that if I went for the easy way out, going so far as to accuse Robert about what happened, he could just get away with it, denying everything and threatening me with something. I don't know. I was really afraid. So I came up with a plan that if it worked out correctly, no matter how much it would end up, it was going to be a resounding note for Robert. I remember feeling very bad when I returned home because I had to endure their lost looks, clueless and innocent, pretending that everything was in order, while I knew the horrible truth. I don't know how such sadistic people can even exist in this world. Ugh. Well, we were just a few days away from our anniversary wedding, And it was then that I started with the plan, telling Robert about how I wanted our anniversary party to be even bigger. Then our wedding was last year. This was strange for him to hear, as he knew that I was not the kind of girl who asks for things but rather likes to receive a lot. Still, that did not matter too much because then I could pull off something never seen before, a wedding carnival. That was the theme, take some streets of the city, safe or not, so not very crowded, where there were several tall residential buildings to gather many people that simply could not be imagined in a place like an event hall. Of course, it was odd for me to ask this, but little would Robert know what I was up to. In reality, he was too worried about his work and his nightly shifts to his daughter's bed, which disgusted me so much that even if they started at 7 o'clock, I would go straight to bed or sleep, or at least pretend to sleep. I never told anyone about it, and I feel that made things a little difficult. Since I was acting on my own, at least I felt that if something went wrong, I was the only person who knew, without involving anyone else. I planned to expose Robert's phoniness at the party and for everyone to realize how grotesque he is. It was perfect because no matter what happened next, his reputation was going to crash down. Even if he sued me or something, he was still going to pay for the consequence for having coitus with a girl. That's not really legal. In our state, age of consent is 18, so it didn't matter much if the girl did not object. Well, during all those days of planning, I cared nothing about what might happen next. I was only interested in exposing everything. Mind you, I also needed to corroborate things and get evidence. I wasn't going to just grab the microphone and say, "Hey, do you know my husband does this and that with his daughter?" I need to be more forceful, so I did something wrong. Something necessary. I took Dolly's phone while she was taking a bath. I started using it to look up the conversation she was having. This was difficult because the girl's phone is supremely hard to manipulate. It's a mess in terms of organization, and while anyone would be happy about the fact that the phone doesn't have a password, I also feel like you can waste a lot more time finding the chat than you're looking for. I found the conversations, and some were half illogical. Partly, I assume, is because they were deleting messages and sending each other single-view files. However, some messages, it did look racy, where they arranged meetings for the same night, and I don't want to detail them too much because they're very unpleasant when you know the context. The party was organized in such a way that from the first moment it was announced there were thousands of shares on social network, and the news, and so on, saying that it was going to be a public event, where anybody who wanted could just enter. That is a small party where these things are going to be, and it's going to be a fee of just $2 to get in. For such an event, it was very well received indeed. There was going to be way too much food, dancing, music, and decorations, filling entire windows with flags, confetti, and streamers. The only thing that really put me in a sad mood and almost ruined the plans was when Robert made a plea to release all the stray animals to have the show without further mishap. I thought it was a very tender gesture and regretted that it came from such an individual. I guess behind the friendliest faces hides the most damaged of a soul. The event was spectacular. The music flooded the whole city, and I even felt sad that it was all part of a revenge. But the more I saw the colors and the enjoyment, the more I could justify humiliating Robert. In the back of my mind was the thought that if he could do something like that, I could not imagine what else he was capable of. We stood next to Dolly at the head table, where I wore a long red dress that stood out with my figure and my lipstick. I looked very femme fatale. I was told later, I faked my smile like never before and waited at least 4 hours until it was time for the speech of Robert. Robert was, not bad, actually, but it was very middle ground. We had a big screen behind us where a slideshow with some pictures of us was played beforehand. Even some people could tell how cheesy it was when it was over, getting some applaud and some awes on the other side of my speech. So I said this. First of all, thank you so much for coming. It's very nice that the people we love the most are here with us, who have been the most aware of our relationship, are all congregated in one place. It's been a wonderful year, full of joy and lots of love, family love, maybe more love than we could ever give or receive. It was then that I mentioned that I had a small slideshow available for the event, starting with other photos and commenting on them in the process. The time we went to the zoo, the concerts, or the time Robert cheated on me with Dolly in our own home. How crazy, right? People gasped in horror, and everybody's face changed faster, and I thought that they would. Robert himself said to turn off the screen, but I said to keep playing the images while people watched the conversation and the best part, recordings. That's right. I played the audios that I recorded while pretending to be asleep. And even though they only played for 3 seconds before Robert unloaded against the control booth, it was done. People started booing him, and I yelled into the microphone, "Please, as an anniversary present, give me a divorce, you pig!" And ladies and gentlemen, that was it. To summarize what happened next, the authorities showed up at the venue because I think parallel to that there was a scuffle in the audience. They also took Robert away for the crime of having been with a girl that's not of age. Well, everybody was just straight up booing him. Later, when he confessed to the police, I found out that the carnal relationship they had dated back no more than half a year. It wasn't even that long, but still the law stipulated that Robert is going to jail. I disengaged from him, and so far I have only supported the police with testimonies and evidence I've collected and showed at the event. I've had no further contact with either Robert or Dolly, but I know they must be hating me at this very moment. Revenge felt pretty satisfying, and I'm not going to lie to you. And no matter how good Robert's lawyers are, they can't save him from the evidence. The story may continue, but that will be another time. In the meantime, I'm getting ready to re-enter the always comfortable bachelorhood. The time I was married was good. I mean, married me, who knew? But at least it all serves as an experience. Who knows? Maybe in the future another knight will appear, but the shining armor? I think it's just a fairy tale. Well, guys, this story was absolutely disgusting. I want to know what you think about it because OP's husband was so out of line. Luckily, at the end of it, we did get a bit of justice, revenge. We got it all because OP's husband faced the public backlash, was publicly embarrassed, was cut off from his friends, and most importantly, sent to jail. Guys, if you're new to the channel and you like these sort of stories, just know my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate them every single day, so if you do want to be a part of these daily readings, I would just say consider subscribing by pressing that subscribe button underneath this video. That's going to be it for today. Once again, I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Guys, also remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.